Actually, I do believe that we are on a turning point in our history as far as our relationship to the major questions that create in this world the very essence of meaning and purpose of humanity. So this is why the agenda of discussion that we should create amongst intellectuals, but also through them amongst the masses and amongst everyone, is how could we unify ourselves and find a framework that could bring together values and also ethics in order to create this future. What I'm worried about is the fragmentation that is happening in the world right now, based on religious or national belonging or sectarian belonging, or the rise of right-wing philosophies that might drag us into an agendas of the past. These are not the agendas of the future. They are the agendas of the 60s and 50s and 70s. I think the future is different. The future is much more connected. The future is much more universal. And at the same time, it has different questions and problems to be answered. So while we are busy tackling the agenda of the past, we may not do justice to the agenda of the future. And Common Action Forum, for example, by adopting discussion about the future, is in fact embracing the serious and real trend that will introduce to the elite and to the intelligentsia and to the public some kind of basics in order to build upon. We cannot, of course, introduce maybe a full version of solution because this is an international human collective effort built on diversity and built of serious quest for a meaning for this future that we are indulging ourselves in, a future which might differently change the way that we perceive our reality. So yes, Common Action Forum is at the center of this, and the agenda itself keeping every year shaping the minds of the people who participate, and at the same time transcending the debate forward instead of being stuck in the previous and ancient discussion and the great debates of the past. I think this is what Common Action should do.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great. What I've noticed so far is it's a great for networking. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I've just had lunch with someone from Portugal, and yesterday I went to dinner with someone from Qatar, and I never really met people from Qatar. And I talk, what do you do? And then I learned about virtual reality and like helping children, educational more. And of course, some are on much heavier topics. And we talked about that earlier also. Like it might be really about hunger and lack of water. And I totally agree that are huge problems, which fortunately we don't really deal with in the Netherlands, but it's to learn about each other, from each other, sharing perspectives. I think we're all kind of on the same page in all our different topics, networking and maybe building new programs together, and that makes me hopeful.
Yeah. Bueno, vuestro rol, como el de otras muchas entidades que están pensando, muchos think tank, es eso, es pensar. Pensar de manera colectiva, escuchar bien todas las propuestas que hay, todas merecen ser escuchadas y atendidas, y a partir de ahí pues tratar de articular propuestas y difundir esas propuestas que vayan en la dirección de cambio hacia una sociedad más inclusiva, que implica que se basen en el diálogo social, eso es imprescindible, y que se basen en la generalización de los derechos de ciudadanía, pero también de los derechos específicos de los trabajadores. Una perspectiva del derecho es una perspectiva bastante bien orientada, Es una estrella polar que permite equivocarse poco. Entonces, diálogo social y perspectiva del derecho, sobre esa base hay muchas posibilidades de edificar distintas propuestas. Entonces yo animo a este think tank que tiene pues tan buenas intenciones a trabajar con esa perspectiva, oír a todos y hacer propuestas en esa dirección.
I think that discussing inequalities is the first step into bringing to a solution when such a wonderful group of people like in this forum sit down together and debate and raise optional solutions for the problems of our societies. It's a first step towards the solution, bringing the solution to those inequalities and problems.
Bueno, yo tengo un defecto porque, bueno, todos tenemos, pero sí. Uno que cuando menos yo diría es muy lógico, muy obvio, es que tengo una digamos que una aproximación más pragmática sí. a los problemas, porque cuando estás en el gobierno sí. de una ciudad no tienes tiempo, no quiere decir que no pienses, sí. pero no tienes tiempo ni el margen. No. Y tienes que estar muy concentrado en cómo vas a lograr las cosas. Sí, soluciones y puntos. Sí. Sí, entonces yo diría que quizás una forma, no de mejorar, pero sí de enriquecer. Yo pensaría en tener más presencia de los que implementan las políticas okay. y las decisiones sí. Para tratar de lograr, es decir, al final del día, ¿con qué te vas? ¿Te vas con ideas nuevas? Sí. Conoces gente muy interesante, como ha sido ahora, gente que tiene trayectorias muy valiosas en lo personal, y te podrías ir también quizás con un portafolio de soluciones que han funcionado en otras partes del mundo. Y eso podría ser muy útil, porque las gentes que están en las ciudades tienen que, por ejemplo, aquí se habló mucho, en la primera sesión se habló del Islam, no sé por qué, pero ese fue el tema, ¿no? Dijimos, está bien. A lo mejor convendría tener ciudades representadas que son del Islam. So what, ¿no? Sí. Para poder discutir qué es lo que están haciendo. Sí. Y a lo mejor sería muy interesante de varias regiones del mundo tener algunas ciudades. Ahora, hay muchas reuniones de ciudades en el mundo, no estoy diciendo que esto se convierta en una reunión de ciudades adicional, pero quizá convendría tener ese punto de vista. Y otra cosa sería tener a organizaciones no gubernamentales que también están luchando por lo mismo. Hay algunas presentes aquí, sí. pero quizás se podría invitar otras, sí. ¿no? Y ¿qué otra sugerencia haría yo? Que lo movieras de sede. Entre más, entre más acerques el debate a algunas otras regiones, sí. tendrás más gente de esa región que quizá pueda participar.
Bueno, voy a partir de una imagen sí. que se dio en uno de los videos que ha grabado el CAF. Sí. Me refiero a esa imagen de un gomón con cientos de personas arriba, sí. Migración forzada, diría, de los países de África hacia Europa, a través del mar Mediterráneo, que sí. se ha convertido en un gran cementerio. Esa foto, esa vista aérea tomada, que parece que es un enjambre humano, sí. en búsqueda de condiciones de vida dignas, de un lado explicita el desafío, del otro da cuenta de la desigualdad que hay entre lo que proclaman los textos normativos y lo que es la realidad, sí. ¿no? Entonces, cualquier actividad de organismos como Common Action Forum, de la sociedad civil, además de las políticas estatales, que haga que esa foto no se repita más, sí. es decir, que no tengamos esa pérdida de la condición humana tan objetiva, tan brutal, sí. o que adquiramos conciencia de ella cuando vemos la foto del niño de 5 o 6 años que el mar arrojó y que murió ahogado. Entonces, allí habremos mejorado la condición humana, ¿no? Y creo que los pasos para esa mejora están dados por estos temas de deuda externa, el tema de la dependencia tecnológica, la explotación de recursos y riquezas naturales y la fuga de capitales de los países del tercer mundo. Si esos capitales estuvieran en los países de donde provienen, seguramente sus condiciones de vida harían que no hubiera necesidad de migraciones, ¿no? Sí. La migración es producto del despojo, de la explotación, del sometimiento, de las guerras, etc. Bueno, todo esto algún día será la prehistoria humana, pero por ahora estamos en la lucha por lograr ese mundo que comprometen los textos sacrales de los derechos humanos, pero que todavía tienen un enorme hiato entre lo que está dicho en la norma y lo que es la realidad, ¿no?
Yes, indeed. I still see that governments have huge responsibility to do it by affording better access to the internet, by being a part of networks people are operating, and to innovate countries. The governments have a mandate to do that, and also resources if they have this political mindset and willingness to innovate the countries. And this is what e-governance academy is doing worldwide. We advise governments how to use technology for good governance, and it's a constant education of politicians, administrators of different countries, and this awareness rising about what actually this innovative government means and what should be done in order to have better governance. I think this is like a constant concern of those international organizations who are working for democracy. And I should also advise maybe to have a closer look on open government partnership process, a process which is already 5 years in operation, which is a platform also to innovate governments using technology. And there are a lot of countries already taking part in this platform, about 80 already from different regions. And to support this kind of educational projects, to support civil society, to use technology for mobilization, to have better advocacy capacity, and CAF is so good already having this platform of debate, but maybe indeed this debate should be more focused on not quite an abstract issues, but to take real problems we have in our world about like supporting this goals of United Nations to have more progress in different parts of the continents and so on.
The way I see CAF from the beginning, it is the common action forum. So it is action oriented, and I think this is the beauty of it. The other thing is that it's a bottom up. It adopts a bottom up approach, like people, average people like us, like they come and who knows something well enough to talk about, to discuss, to raise among equals, and it's not a top down. Like we don't have heads of states, for example, dictating to us what to do or what direction and so on. So we have the action orientation, and also we have people who are really share the same common cause or causes. They share the same common causes and concerns about, and they have also a feeling that they share the same destiny and care about and concern about the future. These are very good ingredients for people actually to get into a collective action in order to improve the conditions and the different issues that were challenges. We are challenged by immigration issues, by poverty, by inequality. This is just the theme of this annual conference, and hopefully something will come out of it. Now, how can we translate this into something doable, something exactly tangible? Because unlike other conferences with people come or get into a 5-star hotel, smoke their brain out, exactly, and talk and so on, and then leave. Instead, of course, there are so many suggestions that you can do. One issue, for example, because the essence is shared knowledge, that we all become aware of the challenges that are facing us as members of same humanity. And then we try to provide platforms through Common Action Forum, through Common Action, because that's what's available for us now, to provide platforms. How can we connect with the rest of the people, raise awareness about these challenges, and propose solutions to them. Of course, for example, the first panel that we heard today, it was rich of local experiences global perceptions about the problem. And I think the issue about the case of South Africa that we discussed, the case of Mexico, the case of Jewish-Muslim relationship and tolerance, issue of tolerance, coexistence, dialogue, and so on. The case of Estonia. I mean, they were very rich cases, each ranging from basic rights of citizenship into electronic democracy and electronic government. What does that call for? Exactly, that calls for the future. What kind of future? It is what we can call collective imagination. Our collective imagination has to come together, as some panelists said today, in a very innovative way to come up with solutions. I'm not providing, of course, the answers now, but of course, it is a collective action. I bring my agenda or my proposals, others bring their proposals, and then the Common Action Forum see what's fit for them to proceed with. But of course, there are tangible suggestions for action, real action that could be done.
Haciendo en la medida en que organizáis encuentros de discusión como estos, muy abiertos, muy plurales, quizás cuidar mucho el hecho de que haya participación de mujeres, porque en cuanto nos descuidamos siempre, ¿no? Nos olvidamos de eso, ¿no? Entonces esa sería una de las posibilidades. Y luego, pues en el caso específico de los retos que yo veo, por lo menos para el siglo XXI, pues el tema de la sostenibilidad, el tema de la ecología y el tema de la igualdad entre hombres y mujeres me parecen temas realmente relevantes que os pueden dar mucho juego.
Pues mira, yo pienso que siempre es bien productivo trabajar con proyectos concretos, ¿ves? Con proyectos que tú puedas contextualizar, con unos agentes definidos, con unos propósitos, ¿no? Y eso puede ser desde un proyecto de investigación hasta un proyecto de experimentación incluso con respecto a un modelo social, pues a ver qué pasa, ¿no? O sea, y un poco yo creo que eso complementaría el trabajo de Common Action Forum, es decir, la discusión siempre es importante, siempre es productiva, pero tener un proyecto más concreto que se pueda un poco mirar en el tiempo y se pueda evaluar, monitorear y ver qué pasa, yo creo que sería algo adicional que les convendría, no sé, como para el desarrollo precisamente de generar nuevos espacios de diálogo, pero de otra manera, un poco más en la acción.
Sharing experiences, sharing the knowledge, sharing what we've heard in these past 2 days. I really think, and that's talking to people also, I really think that's valuable. And it's not an easy task, it's not going to happen next year, that it's really going to bring the results, but hearing things like, I believe, I'm optimistic, I'm the feelings, you know, intellectuals or people that are tending to be really serious tend to disregard what is the true core of our beings, emotions, feelings, being fellow human. So I really, really like what CAF is doing, and I hope that it's going to evolve and actually produce something.
Yeah, I think the most important thing I can focus on in the very short term is to say the financial crisis we had back in 2008 and the ones I expect to see in other countries between now and 2020 were all caused by private debt growing too fast and getting out of control. And we have to reduce the level of private debt. Once you understand how money is created by double and triple keeping. Banks create money by putting money in your deposit account and which is the liability for them, and on the asset side, recording they've got an asset of the same value, which is the loan that they've given you. So the loan goes up, which is their asset. The deposit goes up, which is their liability. That creates money, and we then spend that into the economy. But it's incredibly simple to create that money. It's very, very hard to make a profit. It's hard work to work for a wage. It's simple to create money. But the reason banks can do it is they've got a social license to create that money. They've been allowed to become a bank. So society gives them that power. They don't have any magical ability that means a banker can do it and nobody else can. They've gone through whatever process is necessary to register a bank, or they've been around for so many centuries that they've just been allowed to continue being banks. But that capacity is simply a social right, a social responsibility given to them. In fact, we're given the social right without matching it with social responsibilities. Now, if we say we want you to lend money for creative purposes, not to finance asset bubbles, that is a huge change. At the moment, all banks really lend you money to is they lend against collateral, and by lending against collateral, which is houses or shares, they cause the prices of those to rise, which gives you a positive feedback loop that encourages more people to borrow money, gives us a bubble, and then we have a crash. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. We can ban them. We can say here's a social right to create money. With it comes the social responsibility. You can create that money to finance entrepreneurs, to give firms working capital, to help consumers buy large consumer items they can't buy immediately out of their own income, but you can't finance asset bubbles. So we could actually set that sort of control on banks. And we can, just as banks create money by double entry bookkeeping, so does the government. The government can finance a deficit, so-called, simply by issuing bonds, which in a very roundabout process are ultimately bought by the central bank. Now that's the government treasury creating an asset, which then the central bank buys off them and gives the government an asset which it can spend into the population. So the government should spend more than it gets back in taxation. And if we then know that those are the ways that money are created, banks by lending more than they get back in repayments, governments by spending more than they get back in taxation, we have these two systems of money creation, and we can use one to control the other, or to attenuate the damage done by the other. So if we understand that it's actually simple in one sense, there are legal minefields with all the terms that have been put on privately created bonds and so on. It's not simple, it's not easy, but at an abstract level, it's quite straightforward to use government money creation capability to cancel private debt and then to get us out of the debt trap we are currently in. And people don't realise how bad it is. We have a higher level of private debt compared to GDP at the moment in the world than we've had in the history of humanity. So we've got ourselves in a debt trap. We have to realise we're there before we can get out of it.
Well, you see, when you want a soundbite like that to wrap things up, you have to arrange that in advance. Spontaneity has to be arranged in advance. Mark Twain wrote that it takes weeks to write a good impromptu speech. And it would take days, at least, for me to be ready to... Because, I don't know, I'm not fully... haven't really come to a conclusion about this. We've just walked out of the last session a few minutes ago.
So do you think, are you going to write an article after...
About this?
Yeah, well, not about this, but using this experience as an inspiration for your upcoming articles?
You mean, did I hear anything that might inspire me to...
Yeah, even for criticizing it, I don't know. I don't know anything about your current projects.
Really, there isn't anything. I've just been refining the things I've been doing for the last 2 years. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure that I was struck with any new idea new to me that I'm immediately interested in working on. But I think very well that as I do either new work or continue to refine the old, I expect that some of the things I've heard will come back to me and will probably have some effect. I couldn't say what it will be, though.
Okay.
Bueno, mira, esta no es una pregunta fácil para nada. Solo el hecho de Common Action Forum juntar personas de todo el mundo prácticamente, ¿no? Siempre con varias, para traer las experiencias, es algo que siempre genera el efecto de que, bueno, los que estaban aquí y que están involucrados en proyectos en sus países, de una manera u otra, llevan las experiencias. Entonces, mismo que Common Action Forum no sea el fórum que va a implementar, los que participan están de una manera u otra implementando todo lo que pasa aquí, todo lo que fue discutido y lo que cada uno logra retener, ¿no? De la experiencia. Entonces, creo que si no, mismo que no vemos todo lo que pasa, algo pasa que es positivo, sí, que es positivo. El paso hacia una implementación de medidas no es algo que, bueno, es algo que tiene que ser muy pensado porque hay muchas acciones posibles que pueden tener, no sé, yo pienso que las cosas tienen que ir despacio, ¿no? Y pensar en acciones puntuales, como por ejemplo la primera es acción en las redes, ¿no? ¿Qué tipo de mensaje, visión de mundo, contra y resistencia a visiones hegemónicas y reaccionarias, ¿no?
Claro, de hecho, mañana tenemos la charla sobre fake news, ¿no?
Ajá, sí.
Y la cobertura mediática.
Sí, exacto. Entonces, esto de inmediato creo que es el más importante y posible de implementar, porque es algo que todos nosotros tenemos el poder de hacer, ¿no? Que el poder de entrar en las redes y actuar en las redes con conocimiento, ¿no? Contestando visiones hegemónicas, trayendo la duda donde parecen haberse, porque las redes tienen esta característica a veces de poner certezas que son falsas y como si fueran las verdades. Entonces, y por otro lado, la característica también de traer noticias que a lo mejor no estarían ahí y la gente no sabría, y realidades ocultas por la gran media. Entonces, explorar esto. Esto es algo que puede sí pasar. Pero más que esto, yo pienso que, y veo que empieza a haber la participación cada vez más de personas involucradas en la política, por ejemplo, en una municipalidad o un senador y personas entonces que necesitan esta troca de experiencia y que pueden repetir, hacer con que se reproduzca en sus localidades, en sus políticas, los aspectos progresistas discutidos aquí. Bueno, hay mucho que se puede hacer, pero hay que...
Well, I think the Common Action Forum has this annual discussion. I think it's a very brilliant methodology, and I mean it could be longer. I was thinking when we were having the conversation about jobs, we could have done the whole 2 days on jobs. We were just getting going on that in a way. Maybe one of the things to do is to pick a smaller subject and just work it through, because I think there are people who could work it through and come up with real sort of ideas that could be then driven out there. And so I think if you want to put an emphasis on the action side, maybe it's to really pare down. I mean, there's a temptation. I really enjoyed both last year and this year. But I think there's also a way of saying, all right, without bringing in just experts, how do we really take the question of employment and jobs and what do we do? What are we going to do? Yeah. But I think the other thing is that I think the Common Action Forum, because it is deeply international, and it has this very interesting element of, Islamic, Middle Eastern, etc., mixed in with European and Latin American and some Canadian. I think there's a really interesting possibility, but somehow you've got to pick some things to do which are quite narrow
in order not to. I mean, if the conversation is going to stay broad, then pick some things to do which are quite narrow. So, my idea would really be, for example, to begin a kind of youth-oriented exploration of what can be done with the Mediterranean culture, which has been burst apart. And Northern Europe dominates, and they pretend there is no European culture, and they see lines, whereas there is in fact a unity around this pond, which is the profound historical, religious, philosophical unity, which has just been destroyed by the 19th century empires and the power of Northern Europe. And so I think there would be something really interesting, and what I would do is simply, first of all, put out a call all around the Mediterranean to people under 30 to put forward proposals for what they would like to work on around what would bring the Mediterranean together today, and then see what you get, first year, second year, third year, and then suppose you choose 25 young people, and you choose 5 ideas. And you create the 25 kids. You break into 5 groups, and the 5 groups would be, each one of them would have, say, a Spaniard, a Lebanese, a Greek, around the Mediterranean. But each one is different, and each of them works on a different plan. And I think that could be incredibly exciting. And I think you would be first of all, you would be influencing the future leaders of the region. You would be having an impact on the way people think about how they should be educated, and how they think how they think about how they belong together. And it would take, I think you'd find after 5 or 6 years that it would start to have an impact on the language around the region. And you'd suddenly find that, after 5 years you had a couple of hundred of these kids who are now going into influential positions, and they've got these links all around, and it's not romantic. And you start building something. You start building a mechanism of people who think about how they belong together. And because they were joined by working on a project, and then the 5 groups are brought together, so it's multiple projects, you start to really build something up that can be published, that can be debated, that can be taken around the world, that can be filmed. It starts to have to roll of its own accord. I think that would be very exciting, and a real contribution to, in a way, the most explosive area and failed area in the world today. In a way, and it just rethinking the way people think about. The Europeans think they're being invaded and that there's a crisis of migrants. This is ridiculous, preposterous thought. They have no thought that actually there was an empire and that the Europeans were all mucking up these places. So, you just have to bring people together in a different way. And I think that could be an enormous contribution for the Common Action Forum.
I don't have the prescriptions, but I think that the great thing, even though you have an elderly person like me here, I think that a big asset that CAF has is that it has a lot of young people who are involved in it. And I would also say that because we don't just discuss things from a position of bread and butter, but we also have the philosophical input. I think it's a kind of mental strengthening, because people have to go out into the real world and actually apply these the ideas and the solutions. I think that for CAF, it may probably still be trying to find where is its real point of entry. It's one thing to examine problems or issues from different perspectives, but after we've had the discussion and the round table or the octagon, we need to think about how do we move beyond the discussion. I was struck very much today by one of the participants, the young lady from the Netherlands, who talked about specific things that she's done going with, as a Jewish Dutch person, going with Dutch Muslims to Auschwitz, and being there with people, because of the on the one hand there are people who say, well, why are we having to pay for what happened at Auschwitz? And on the other hand, you would have people who say that we didn't even know about it. But what I felt was that she was doing something actually concrete. In my own country, in Nigeria, we have a lot of issues. We have a possible breakaway movement. And yet, if people were able to discuss, they would probably find that there isn't the need to break away. The things that you are complaining about, the things that you want to achieve, can be achieved without breaking away. And also, it's not really a practical thing, whereas I'm not so sure about whether the Catalonia breakaway is a practicable thing. Partly because in my country, it's always every ethnic group considers itself marginalized, and everybody's saying, well, we're not enjoying the things that others are enjoying, and everybody's sort of looking into the other person's grass and seeing that it's greener. Whereas my impression of the issues in Catalonia are not just language, but also a feeling that, look, we're working hard and producing money and we're supporting other people. So I don't have, as I said, I don't have enough of an idea about the issues, but I think that I'm a big believer in dialogue. I'm a big believer in enlightened self-interest, and it would be nice if people would do things because it's the good and Christian or religious thing to do, but or moral thing to do. But often the great thing is the extent to which the right thing to do turns out to be the useful and the best thing to do, rather than doing the wrong thing, and then when you're halfway up the creek without a paddle, you discover that you're approaching some rapids.
Haciendo la fórmula ya lo tenéis, el formato ya lo tenéis. Esto que hemos hecho ahora aquí del Common Action Forum es la fórmula. Aprovechar lo bueno de la globalización. Gente de todas partes del mundo, pero yo lo que pondría el énfasis, ya lo habéis hecho también un poco, ¿no? Es juntar profesionales que tengan experiencia sociopolítica, por ejemplo, o activistas de políticas sociales y mejora de todo lo que hay, ¿no? Con el interés más filosófico, humano, porque lo que viene ahora es el desarrollo de la humanidad, el potencial humano, lo que en los 60, 70 en América decían human potential. El desarrollo potencial humano. Llámalo vida interior, aquí en los términos tradicionales serían la contemplación, porque contemplación es conocimiento de ti mismo. Los filósofos griegos lo llaman la gnosis, el conocimiento de ti mismo, que es un conocimiento que no es conceptual. Y entonces esto juntarlo con la capacidad técnica y profesional. O sea que los profesionales hay que trabajar con los profesionales y con los que han demostrado su valor como activistas y tal, y invitarlos a compartir este interés por el crecimiento humano. Y todos están encantados, porque esto para ellos es el próximo capítulo, es el próximo grado. Y entonces se trabaja en élites, y perdona la palabra, pero es que es inevitable. Porque la estructura social es una estructura elitista. Estas cosas más, digamos, arriesgadas o que la gente tiene miedo, ¿no? Las comienzan las élites, los que bomba, ¿no? Tienen ganas de aprender y de progresar. Y entonces ellos, lo que hemos hecho aquí, por ejemplo, estos días de conferencia y tal, es como un seminario, ¿no? Tienen unas semillas que se han plantado y ahora cada uno en su sitio, esto va fructificando y todo irradia como una mancha de aceite, y así se transforma sociopolíticamente el mundo actual. O sea que si te pones en esta línea, pues estás en sintonía con los tiempos, vas con una ola y ya vas viendo por dónde tienes que ir, siempre desde el buen corazón y desde la buena intención, y mejorando a los demás te mejoras a ti mismo, por decirlo de algún modo, ¿no?
Well, I'm not really sure about that,
because I don't really know enough about CAF's work outside of the meeting. This is the first time I've been. I mean, generally, I see the value of there being an enormous variety of contexts in which there can be open discussion across borders and across different territories, across different understandings, different ages, which is what we've seen in this meeting. So, and just that idea that the spaces for open discussion and deliberation are being restricted across the world, against the grain of that, in a sense, just in an ideal sense, to have this kind of open discussion going on is a valuable thing, and that sort of engagement. And I think this point, in that sense, it's a kind of deliberative space. And in that sense, it depends upon the effectiveness in sort of hooking the resources that emerge from that space to policy processes and so on. Now, that I don't know how CAF does that, but that would be the question. But as a forum, it's great.
You know what happens is that when you're dealing with corporate giants, big banks, I talked about Google and Facebook and so on. Small institutions cannot compete money-wise. What can we do? I mean, everything helps. There's no magic, there's no silver bullet, obviously, in life. So we say, what is the best role that an institution like yours can play? I think we can play the role of connecting people, connecting like-minded institutions. In managerial parlance, we call it leveraging. So 3 foundations like yours is better than 1. So you don't duplicate the work and so on. What can we do? We can advance understanding. We can understand, in the case of Europe, for example, they don't know what to do about immigration. Europe is in denial. Europe thinks it has no immigration, but it has immigrants. But France doesn't want to recognize the people who came from their former colonies in Algeria and so on. So they think these are foreigners. They're not foreigners. This is 3rd generation French people who are demonstrating, who are burning buildings and so on. You know, we don't let them integrate. We don't give them equal opportunity. Then they say, we don't let them integrate. Then we say, oh, they don't integrate. We put barriers to them. So we cannot have this ongoing discrimination generation after generation because the French society or others fail to recognize them as citizens. Because, why? Because their definition of citizenship is still either racial or it is based on the color of their skin. The Frenchman thinks only the white Frenchman is a Frenchman. The brown Algerian is not a Frenchman. So long as you think like that, you're in trouble. If Germans think that the Turks will go back to Turkey, they're not going back. They're in the 2nd, 3rd generation. That's why the Canadian formula is an immigrant is a future citizen. The moment you come into Canada as an immigrant, you are to be treated as a future citizen. If you are a future citizen, you must integrate. Must integrate doesn't mean that you give up your language, give up your customs, give up your faith, give up your traditions. All that means is we want you to be productive citizens of Canada. And the only common factor that citizenship should require, anyone who lives legally within the borders of Spain is a Spanish citizen. Anyone who lives legally in the borders of France is a French citizen, regardless of color, regardless of who you are. What can we expect in return? Oh, they must integrate, they must laïcité, they must... No. The only thing we can expect legally from them is they follow the law of the land. If they follow the law of the land, they're in your country legally, they're fully entitled to citizenship. Anything otherwise is big problem. You're creating massive problems for yourself if you just live in denial that these people don't belong here. They belong here. So we talk about racism elsewhere. There's much racism in France and across Europe and so on. If you think only a white person can be a Spanish citizen, or a white person can be German, or a white person can be French, you have serious problems. You have serious fundamental problems of racism because as a society, we refuse to acknowledge that these people are full citizens. Institutions like yours should be advancing this idea, this Canadian idea. You're here legally, you're a citizen. You can speak any language you want. You can keep your traditions, keep any faith, so long as you don't break the law. That's the common bond between citizens. And that's a very difficult idea for Europe to get its head around. I'm originally from India. India has 28 official languages. It has all the religions of the world and so on. An Indian is an Indian is an Indian, you know. Now, there are problems in India of Hindu nationalism, this and that, but it is not based on that you're not an Indian. We are all Indians. We are all Canadians. So this idea of one class of citizenship is very, very important. And now it's up to the countries to decide how many refugees do you take, how many you don't take, what should we do with them. These are issues that we have to grapple with. Canada does not have to grapple with this issue because we have a pond in between Europe and the Atlantic Ocean. People can't cross it easily. We are not the United States with a Mexico border, so we are insulated in many ways. So we can do these things. But